Hello, my name is Mary Moore, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Thurston County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that is encouraging the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We influence public policy through education and advocacy. And we're open, it's very important that you know this, to both men and women. With me today are 4 candidates for a Superior Court position number 2. And we have with us today Marie Clarke, Jim Johnson, Victor Minjares, and Christine Schaller. Schaller?
Schaller.
Thank you. Before we begin today's questions, the League would like to thank TCTV for always being so willing and capable in helping us provide these forums for your information and edification. So thank you, TCTV. So today we have 5 questions for the 4 of you. First of all, before we start, each one of you will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. And then I will start asking questions, and we will go alphabetically around the table. And then the last question will be for all of you at the same time. The first person who gets the question will get 2 minutes to answer. And then each successive person in the table will have 1 minute for their response. Then the second question will go to Jim, third question will go to Victor, fourth question to Christine, and then we'll start with the last question. Is that clear? Yes. Any questions? No. Okie dokie. So, would you like to start, Marie, with your first opening statement?
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, League of Women Voters and TCTV for sponsoring this event. I am a candidate for Superior Court Judicial Position number 2, and what's important is that our Superior Courts are the trial courts of this state. So it's critically important that our judges be able to preside over both complex civil cases as well as felony criminal matters. I have 26 years of trial experience as both a civil trial attorney and a felony prosecutor. I'm currently a managing attorney at the Torts Division in the Washington State Attorney General's Office, which handles some of the most complex civil cases on behalf of the state of Washington. I have practiced in the area of constitutional law, civil rights, employment litigation, and have handled other complex cases, including class action lawsuits. I'm also, as I indicated, a prior felony prosecutor. I've handled murder cases, drug manufacturing, sexual and domestic violence cases, as well as crimes against children. I've been honored by Attorney General McKenna for my successful trial efforts, as well as mentoring other trial attorneys. In addition to that, I believe I'm a disciplined person, I'm hardworking, I care about others, I'm respectful and professional in my interactions with other people, and I care about reaching the right result in each case. With your support, I will work to protect the quality of justice and the quality of life for our Thurston County residents. And I would appreciate your voting in the primary, which ends August 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Jim.
My name is Jim Johnson, and I'm running for Thurston County Superior Court Judge because I think I can be of service to the people of Thurston County. For the last 18 years, I've been practicing in Thurston County Superior Court and have gained from the wisdom of the judges on the bench there. I've also had the opportunity to practice before other courts in this state and gain from the wisdom of those judges. I'm running for position 2 because Christine Schaller lives in Tacoma, and I have a problem with that. A judge's first responsibility is to follow the law. Washington has a law that requires Superior Court judges to live in the county they serve. It has a law that requires candidates for Superior Court to live in the county they hope to serve. I know Christine Schaller believes these laws to be unconstitutional. I disagree. As a lawyer, I can debate that issue, but as a citizen, I think this is a no-brainer. We have a government that is of the people and by the people, and it is important that we remember that. Superior Court is where the law of the state bears down on the individual, threatening the individual's liberty and property. And the people of Thurston County, when a judge makes a hard decision, whether they agree or disagree with that decision, the people of Thurston County need to know that that decision came from themselves, from within us, not from outside. I don't think it's a problem that the law requires me to live here, and I ask you for your support.
Thank you, Jim. Victor.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks to the League for allowing this opportunity. My name is Victor Minjares, and I'm running for Superior Court Position 2. You know, when you step into a courtroom, it's usually not for a happy reason. Maybe you were horribly injured, and you're seeking just compensation in order to support yourself and your family. Or maybe you're a business person who's being sued unjustly and are wondering how are you going to pay the salaries of the employees who work for you and the mortgage from your business that is threatened. Maybe it's a criminal case in which you're a victim of a serious felony or other crime. Or perhaps you're unjustly accused of a crime and wondering if you're going to lose your freedom or even your life. In all of those circumstances, you want to know that the judge on the bench has the broadest possible legal experience and is qualified to be a judge ethically, legally, and through his life experience. I am that candidate in this race. I am the only candidate who has all the following things. I have years of civil litigation experience. I was a prosecutor for over 10 years doing murders, robberies, and other serious felonies. I also did complicated white-collar crime prosecutions involving losses of millions of dollars in life savings and involving hundreds of victims. After those successes, I taught other prosecutors how to bring those cases. But I have another thing that I've done as well that no other candidate can claim. I've worked a long time in public service, but I also have experience in private practice working for a large corporation in which I managed all of the litigation taking place for that corporation in the state of Washington. I managed other attorneys, and because of that, I feel that judicial and legal experience qualifies me more than the other candidates in this race. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Victor. Christine.
Thank you. I'm Christine Schaller, and I'm seeking election for Thurston County Superior Court Judge, Position 2. There are three main reasons I believe that I am the most qualified candidate for this position. One is the diversity of my experience. I was an attorney in private practice here in Thurston County for 8.5 years. Trial court experience in the areas of family and juvenile law, criminal law, administrative law, estate planning, wills and probate, and personal injury. Next is my judicial experience. I have been your Thurston County Superior Court Commissioner since 2005, when the judges of the Superior Court here in Thurston County appointed me to that position over 19 other applicants. In that position and for the last 7 years, I've been making decisions on a daily basis for the citizens of Thurston County in the areas of family and juvenile law. I've been honored to be one of the highest rated judicial officers here in Thurston County in every Bar Association poll conducted locally since I started the position. In 2009, I was awarded Jurist of the Year from the Washington State Bar Association Family Law Section. This is a proven track record of judicial experience, which is critical because at the end of this election cycle, 4 of the Superior Court judges, which is half of them, will have 2 or less years experience on the bench. And finally is my experience in our community. I was born and raised here. My entire education has been here through graduation at St. Martin's College. Almost my entire work experience has been here, starting at 16 at Tumwater Safeway and including my entire judicial and legal career. I know this community, I know the community that I serve, and it would be a great honor if the voters of Thurston County would allow me to continue to serve them, this time as their next Superior Court judge. Thank you.
And thank you very much, all four of you. Good remarks. Okay, now with the questions. Dun, 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 dun. And this question, I think I will address to Marie, since she's had a few minutes to collect herself. And remember, you have 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll go down and each one of you will have 1 minute. Here's the question. How important do you think consistency is among the different judicial districts? Should each judge make his or her own decision and let the appeals process deal with consistency?
Well, Mary, judges make decisions not based on obviously personal opinions or views about issues. It's very critically important, first of all, that a judge be knowledgeable about the law, and that's why the candidates' broad level of experience should be something scrutinized by the voters. How able are they, how knowledgeable are they with the types of issues that come before the Superior Court with regard to complex civil cases and felony criminal matters, which I have experienced. So first of all, the judge has to be knowledgeable about the law and certainly be prepared and research those areas and questions of the law, which they do have questions about. We are judges and lawyers certainly have what we're obligated to follow precedent, legal precedent. So in addition to the facts of the case and the law at hand, we're obligated to follow the law that as it's been interpreted by higher courts. And it is important that the judge look at the facts of each case, because certainly the facts may distinguish one case from the other. So it's a little difficult to say what is consistent, because the facts of each case are going to really compel largely the result in any given case. So definitely the law and the facts of the case and sound reason have to be what compels each judge to make the best reasoned decision that they can in each case. And certainly it's helpful that the judge reach the correct result to save expense from the litigants from costly appeals. So I believe that each judge has the obligation to independently evaluate the case before them.
Okay, thank you. Jim, how do you feel about that?
I think that consistency comes from understanding the judge's role. A judge isn't supposed to make the law. The people make the law through their representatives in the legislature and at the ballot box through initiatives and referenda. The judge's job is to follow the law. Now, in Superior Court, that means following the case precedent, as Marie talked about. I think it's important that judges follow the law, because the people will be the ones that decide what the law is. The legislature needs to know what the courts are going to do. And if the courts are consistent, then the legislature can change the law if they think it needs to be changed.
Thank you. Victor.
Thank you, Mary. You know, decisions of judges are really driven by the facts and guided by the law. It's difficult to say in any individual case how consistent a judge is being or not being with existing precedent unless you know all the facts of the case. And that's where I think a judge's perspective, his personal experience comes into play. I'm the son of a baker and a housewife, and I worked my way through college and high school in a variety of blue-collar jobs. I understand what people are going through in a way that I think some other candidates might not. I find my experience in dealing with people in my current role as a judge pro tem, when people come in with their affairs dealing with small amounts of money from a legal person's perspective, but that are very important to the individuals there in the court, quite enlightening. So I think when you have to look at the facts of a particular situation, that's the only time you know whether or not the judge is being consistent with the law.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Christine.
I think it's really important that judges give consistent decisions. Now, it will not be the same in every court for every judicial officer, but the judge itself should be consistent in the way that they handle their courtroom, in the way that they apply the law, and the way they render decisions. That helps lawyers and self-represented parties understand how they should come to court and what they can expect. I think here in Thurston County, the judicial officers, all of us, have done a tremendous job in being consistent in the way that we apply the law on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, now, Jim, you're up. You're the batter. Do you believe it better serves the citizens of Thurston County to have their judges elected or appointed, and why?
I think that we elect judges because we don't trust the appointment process. Before Washington became a state, we had appointed judges. We had judges that were appointed by the president, who rode circuit throughout the territory and rendered judgment and left town. The people at the Constitutional Convention debated this issue, and they came down on the side of having elected judges who lived in the counties they served. I think we need to understand the wisdom of that. Electing judges is an odd process because it's hard for people to evaluate us. But the alternative is to allow some appointing agency to make a decision, and the problem with that is that we would have to trust that the appointing agency is doing its job. Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution says that all political power resides in the people, and I think the people have reserved for themselves the right to make this important decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Victor, what do you think?
Well, Mary,
And remember, it's 1 minute, dear.
sorry about that. Yeah, I apologize for going over.
It's okay.
I'll be short on this one. I think that the process of electing judges works quite well when the voters are informed through organizations like the League of Women Voters. I think it works less well when voters don't take the time to get to know the issues and the candidates and simply choose based on the name or based on the familiarity of a name. I really do think that voter education is key to the success of electing judges in this state. And I think when the voters look at this election, the choice is going to be clear. Thank you.
Okay, Christine?
I think this is a great question because there's a lot of talk about this because, of course, in Washington State, there are appointments when there are vacancies to the position of a judge, which later are then followed by an election. And there are concerns in the appointment process that it's too political, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. But in the election process, perhaps some candidates spend more time mudslinging than perhaps focusing on their qualifications. So I think that both processes have their pros and cons. Of course, I think that a judge elected by the people is a strong statement, and I think it is the right process, and no doubt why we have it here in Thurston County and in the state of Washington.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marie, you're up.
Well, I have to say, from a personal point of view, I'm a little conflicted because I don't consider myself to be a politician of any kind. I'm a very independent, nonpartisan person. I'm a little on the shy side. So this election process is outside, frankly, of my comfort zone. But I felt that it was important to put myself out there for the voters to consider and judge my qualifications as well as the other candidates, because ultimately it is the people enact the laws through their legislature, and they need to be ultimately responsible for choosing their judges who need to be faithful to the Constitution, which is obviously the bond that unites all of us. And they need to be the final arbiters of who they want to be their local Thurston County Superior Court judge.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we are on to question number 3, and it's Victor's turn to be in the batter's cage, as it were. I don't know where I've gotten all this baseball stuff today, but hey. So, Victor.
Yes, Mary.
Currently, court rules prevent judicial candidates from revealing their positions on all public policy issues. The result is that voters are often voting blind on these important matters. What is your position on this policy? Should it be retained, or would you change it? And if you would change it, how would you do so?
Well, it's funny because I think the very policy that you're talking about prevents me from saying, what my personal position is on changing it or not changing it. It's the system we have in place, and I respect that. When I've been out doorbelling, I have come across people who insist on knowing what party I belong to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a difficult position to be put in. And I responded to one gentleman. I said, well, I'm not a registered member of any party, which is true. I said, and frankly, if I were, I couldn't tell you because that would be a violation of the Code of Judicial Ethics. And he thought I was evading the question, unfortunately. So I think that's another area of voter education that the League and other organizations like yours could help out with, to understand the constraints that are placed upon judicial candidates and upon judges who must appear beyond approach and above any kind of ethical taint.
Okay, thank you. And I know this is a tough one, but it's an important one, particularly considering what judges in other courts have been doing lately. So you can respond to that, Christine, this question about judicial conduct?
I think it's a very important policy that we have in place, that potential judicial candidates and judges can't talk about what their personal feelings or thoughts are, what any political affiliations that they might have. And that is because we cannot allow our personal opinions or our personal beliefs ultimately to affect the judgments that we render. We're not allowed to do that. We need to decide cases on the facts and on the law, and that's what a good judge does. I recognize that it must be very frustrating for the public when they want to know, for example, what Victor was just saying. What political party are you associated with? When I was doorbelling, what do you think about gay marriage? And the person actually said, wait, you can't answer that question, can you? Which I appreciated. And I don't think judicial candidates are trying to be evasive or withhold information. We simply respect the very important rules that are placed upon us to ensure that we always remain ethical and that our decisions are based solely on facts and the law.
Okay, okay. Now, Marie?
Well, I agree with the policy for this reason, and that is because our judicial canons, the underpinnings of all 4 canons, are this concept of independence, impartiality, and integrity. And so it's my personal views about certain issues is not important. What the voters need to know is, can you trust me? Can you trust a judicial candidate to suspend their own personal views or judgments about an issue and faithfully promise to uphold the Constitution and the laws, and therefore be guided by the law and the facts of that case? Really listen to the facts, and then using sound analytical skills and reasoning come to hopefully a correct result. And so I have personally been involved in cases, for example, capital death sentence post-conviction proceedings, and my personal views cannot be important. I have to follow the law in each case.
Yeah, it's tough. Jim, do you want to respond?
Thank you. I've had a chance to live in other states where they did judicial elections differently. I lived in Illinois where they're partisan races. And I think Washington has a lot of wisdom in its system. I lived in Michigan where incumbents get a designation on the ballot, and in Washington they don't. And I think there's wisdom in that. I think, you know, we have to be judge of all the people, and we have to have everyone in the county walk away from decisions we make, whether they like them or don't like them, feeling like they had a fair shot. And I think that's one of those things where if a judicial candidate was, was Democratic or was Republican, that half of the people could reject the decisions they made just because of the label that was attached. I think it is important for the credibility of our decisions that we not have those labels attached to us.
Okay. Well, a knotty problem, and I would that we had a little bit more time because I'd love to go into it further. I've been following the Montana Supreme Court, and I'm really fascinated by what's going on with them, as I suppose many of us are. So it is now your turn, Christine, to go first. And this is your question. What is your perspective on drug courts, mental health, and other specialized courts?
This is a great question for me. I have presided over therapeutic court since 2005 when I was appointed as a court commissioner. I have presided over family treatment court, family dependency court, and currently I preside over our Thurston County Juvenile Drug Court. These programs are essential to our community. They hold people accountable for their actions and yet give them the services that they so desperately need so that they can change their lives, become productive members of society, and really break the cycle that most of them have come from. They are effective, and to watch people's lives change, to see some of the kids who are in my drug court just completely change what they do, graduate from high school, restore their relationships with their families, it's incredible. Thurston County has saved millions of dollars since Judge Strophe had the great idea and fortitude to start our first felony drug court here in Thurston County. And we have had hundreds and hundreds of graduates from that program. And the recidivism rate is quite amazing. These graduates, they don't come back into the system. In addition to that, people who don't successfully complete the programs oftentimes don't come back into our system because they learned enough while in our therapeutic courts to help them make better decisions. So I am 100% behind therapeutic courts and have seen, I see it on a weekly basis right now, the difference it makes in the citizens and Thurston County, our youth, our parents, and the adults. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Marie, what do you think?
Well, I think that our drug court is important. We do not have a mental health court in Thurston County, but there are mental health courts that have been started in other counties. And drug addiction and mental illness are really two of strong indicators of our individuals who intersect with the criminal justice system. And so it really is imperative that we try to address these behavior issues, mental health issues, addiction issues, so that we can reduce the costs of adult incarceration and actually juvenile detention as well. This is our best and perhaps last opportunity to address these individuals' needs so that they don't create more victims and so that they don't result in increased incarceration for our county and our state. We have to look at a consistent source of funding, however.
Yes. Yes, good point. Yes. Jim.
I think we can look at the experience of other states and see that that taking a criminal approach, an exclusively criminal approach to what are not exclusively criminal problems doesn't work. I think the critical thing is to discover what does work and to do that. Thurston County has had amazing success with its drug court. And wherever there's an opportunity for us to do more, it can only be a good thing, because it's not just our children and our brothers and sisters who are suffering from the drug addiction and the alcohol abuse. It is the whole community that suffers. And if we can find ways that are more effective in dealing with those problems, we need to do that.
Victor.
Well, I think that the drug courts fulfill a very important role in our society. And I do feel, though, that we do have to look at whether it's the most economically feasible way of dealing with that important problem. To run a courthouse is very expensive. To pay a judge's salary is very expensive. And I think the jury is still out on the cost effectiveness of doing these type of programs in a courtroom setting. I have not come to any conclusions. I'm 100% in favor of the goals of these type of programs, but I still think that we need to look at it and constantly see where we are and how successful these are, and whether there are really cost benefits that can be achieved better through other social programs where you're not paying a judge basically to be a social worker. I do think that a lot of good work has been done from those programs, but I think that, like all programs run through our courts, need to be examined periodically for cost effectiveness.
Okay, thank you. Now on to our last question, in which each one of you will get 1 minute to respond, so we'll be fair about it all. And I think I would like to start with Christine, and then we'll go this way just to change it up a bit. All right? And this question really kind of follows on the last question that I asked. Do you have suggestions for improving the operation of the court system, such as speeding the decisions, less cost for dependents, etc.? What are your ideas?
Well, I definitely think that we can always work to make the judicial system more efficient. And in fact, right now, the court is looking at going to a paperless system, which will make us more efficient. The clerk's office is already doing that, and many of the judicial officers in Thurston County, such as myself, don't have files in our courtroom anymore. Also, we're looking at a case management system, and that's going to be a statewide system, and our court has really, I think, suffered because we don't have a case management system. So implementation of that, I think, will be quite helpful. Operations of the court can be difficult and complicated, and I think it's actually an exciting time here in Thurston County with all of the new judges coming onto the bench to look at what we do now and see what we can do differently in the future.
Victor?
Thank you, Mary. I do have some suggestions. In this day and age, I find it amazing that the decisions of courts, the orders that are public records, do not appear for free online, even for a limited time. And I think that should be done so people can easily access what is rightfully available to the public, as long as there are no private or other privilege issues involved in a particular decision. As a judge pro tem, I have noticed some of the things that Ms. Schaller has mentioned about the software systems and the case management systems and how antiquated they are. They seem to be right out of the 1980s, and substantial upgrades are necessary. And as a community activist here in Olympia and working with the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, I hear a lot of comments from ordinary citizens about how they've interacted with the court and what problems they see. So in the time I have left, I don't have time to go into that, but I do have a lot of ideas on that issue.
Jim?
Thanks. I've been practicing in the Thurston County Superior Court for 18 years, and I've watched it evolve and change how it does things. And I've had the chance to watch other superior courts do that. I think if I were elected judge, the first thing I'd do is keep my mouth closed and watch it for about 6 months, because there's probably a lot of wisdom in the current system. They're probably getting as much bang out of the buck as they can. But I think that we can learn from our administrative agencies. You know, I practice before the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals, and they are amazing about getting cases scheduled and getting hearings happen and getting decisions out the door. And I think that courts can look to administrative agencies to figure out how to do things better. At the same time, I had a divorce that went through Thurston County Superior Court, and somebody in the clerk's office sent us a letter once saying we weren't going fast enough, and that seemed a little peculiar to me, because I think when you need to take time, you should.
Marie?
Well, I actually think that the budget cuts that have been, the government, courts, families, businesses have been facing are actually a good opportunity for us to reevaluate how we've been doing business. And some things honestly have not changed in court procedures over 100 years. So the three things we need to look at are reducing costs, because more and more people are having to appear in court without attorneys. They cannot afford them. Simplifying our procedures, and hopefully alleviating congestion and delays. I think a few things that I would have in mind and going in, and would certainly want to collaborate with fellow judges after I was in office, but our website, providing a more user-friendly website for those pro se litigants, simplifying forms. And another thing, we have an untapped resource, and it's in Thurston County. It's called our retirees, who are educated, and I would hope that we could train them to be a pool of volunteers at our courthouse.
Interesting, being a retiree. Okay, so we're towards the end, and each one of you will have 1 minute to kind of give it your last blast, as it were. And I think I will again start with Christine and let her lead off.
Thank you. I know the job I seek is an important one, and that it affects all the lives of the citizens in Thurston County. I hope that the confidence that has been shown in me by our law enforcement, with the endorsements I've received from Sheriff John Snaza and former Sheriff Gary Edwards, and the confidence shown in me by our judiciary, with the endorsements I have received from Judge McPhee and Judge Paula Casey, whose position we are all seeking to fill. They have both endorsed me. The endorsements of former Supreme Court Chief Justice Gary Alexander and retired Thurston County Superior Court judges Burschauer, Strophe, Pomeroy, Hicks, and Doran. They have all endorsed me, and I hope that that will encourage you, the voters, to entrust me with the enormous responsibility of being the next Superior Court judge. Thurston County deserves a judge that is hardworking, experienced, and acts with common sense. That person is me. I'm Christine Schaller, and I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Victor.
Thank you, Mary. I'm Victor Minjares, and I'm running for Thurston County Superior Court Position 2. I'm the only candidate in this race with criminal and civil experience. Has worked in private practice and had a career of public service. I've prosecuted white-collar criminals. I've been a community activist right here in Olympia. I've defended your tax dollars on behalf of the state, and I've done dozens of jury trials to verdict and many appeals as well in a variety of courthouses across the state. I believe that a judge has to be ethical, he has to have perspective, and he has to have a broad knowledge of the law. If you agree with that, I ask you to vote for me for Superior Court Judge by August 7th this year. Thank you very much for your vote.
Jim?
First, I'd like to thank the League for having this, and for TCTV for providing the facilities and the staff doing this. think it is valuable to educate the voters and important. I named my campaign Jim Johnson for Thurston County because I think that it's important that we remember that this is a race for Thurston County. The person who is elected will be a Superior Court judge for 4 years in Thurston County. And I don't think it's unconstitutional for me to live here. I think it's essential for me to live here. I have lived in this community, and when Judge Bershauer was judge, I remember bumping into him at Costco. And I think that kind of personal contact with judges is vital. For more information about me, Google Jim Johnson for Thurston County. You'll find me.
Thank you. Marie.
I think there's no greater preparation for being a Superior Court judge who's responsible for presiding over complex civil and felony criminal cases than actually to have tried these very types of cases, which I have done for 26 years. Superior Court judges have great influence over people's lives and the quality of life for Thurston County residents. And for that reason, I believe, first, that the judge should live in the county they serve and influenced by their decisions, but they need to be meeting the highest ethical standards of impartiality, independence, integrity, and respect for the equality and dignity of every person, every business, every corporation, every entity that would appear in court as a litigant. I will work hard to treat every case as the most important case and to reach the right result in each case, being informed by the law and the facts and my sound reason. There's no greater endorsement in this race than yours, the voters, and I would appreciate your endorsement in the primary that ends August 7th. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all 4 of you. Alas, there are some candidates that do not take advantage of our invitations to come and chat with us on TCTV, and so thank you for doing so. It does help to educate our citizens, and it's really very critical. I was talking to a neighbor of mine this morning, and she said, you know, the sad thing is that so many of us do not vote on judgeships. And that's a really sad thing indeed, because it's such a critically important aspect of our society. And so I want to say to those of you who are watching today, do not forget to vote. And vote in the primary. Vote for the judges as well as the other candidates. Make yourself aware of what the situation is. There's a very good website. It's www.voteforjudges.org. Voting for Judges. Thank you, Victor. .org. Please take advantage of that. And as I said, vote early and often. Thank you.